Hey everybody, welcome to another video, and today we're going to talk about Resident Evil 5, the potential remake. Why are we talking about it? Because came across this article that IGN had put up, and I thought it was a very it's interesting to look at because I think a lot of people have different opinions about this, and I just wanted to kind of go through it a little bit and see what are people's concerns about. There are some genuine concerns, but even I'll also be honest. But yeah, let's just see what is it on about, right? So basically, first of all, let's go through. So IGN, when the game first came out in what 2009 or something, right? So this was the IGN rating. This is the rating they gave for the game. They gave it 9.3, which is quite insane because when I played the game, I felt that it was quite bad, as in it was quite boring. It was very action oriented. It was not Resident Evil at all. This is when Resident Evil dipped. Right after four, they took quite a dip in terms of quality, right? In terms of story quality and things like that. They just made it way too action oriented and things like that. And yeah, I did not like it, and it was quite boring, to be honest. And yeah, it kind of dipped in quality. I mean, I would have given this like a five or something. I think five is also a bit too generous at times, but yeah, it's nonetheless right. It is what it is. So they've given it a 9.3 back then, and then they kind of say it's bad now. I think they already made a review saying that it's bad, but I have no idea how this 9.3 is here still. But yeah, I mean, IGN reviews, you can never be too sure at times. So yeah, let's look at this article. So the Resident Evil game that can't be remade, it's time for a rewrite, not remake. I can somewhat agree with it. So let's see what they've written. So there's a video here, and pretty much like the transcript of the video, like whatever they've said in the video is exact here in text as well. So I'm just going to quickly skim through this and not take too much long. So with Resident Evil 4's release last year, Capcom's project to remake the glory years of its survival horror series is complete, but as the game's post-credit scene suggests, the remakes aren't over, and so the big question is where next? The obvious answer is a remake of Resident Evil 5, but on the game's 15th anniversary, it's clear that moving forward chronologically will take Capcom's remakes into the series' weakest era, an era of gameplay and narrative decisions best left in the past. Resident Evil 5 simply can't be remade, at least not by the standards of Capcom's best work. The answer is simple, not to remake, but to rewrite. I can agree with that, right? So even I myself just said it just a few seconds ago. This was when Capcom dipped, right, in their terms of quality. The story was very. You could clearly say that the story was given second thought. They just focused on. I think. Uh, I think if they were also talked about it here, like, so the result is an unholy hybrid of Resident Evil, Gears of War, Call of Duty. It speaks of the series has lost its way, reflects on the tenets of the foundation. Blah 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 blah. Blah. Okay, fine. Yeah, so they made it way too actiony. It was no longer a survival horror game. It was no longer Resident Evil. Um, and yeah, I mean, like when Resident Evil 4 was first announced, there was a bit of a concern, right? Because they were moving away from the Raccoon City setting, right? Because Raccoon City is essentially Resident Evil, right? The whole vibe of the city is what gave Resident Evil its survival horror thing, right? The Raccoon City. Uh, so with four, there was a bit of concern, but they still did it quite well with the whole Spanish forest setting. I'm not exactly sure what that area is called, but I just know it's in Spain and it's in a foresty area. So that kind of worked real well. They did quite a good job. They made it again a little bit too actiony, but they still did keep a lot of the survival horror elements, and the remake was quite good as well, right? It wasn't too bad. There was a little bit of gimmicky sometimes, with the voice acting, I would say, especially Sadler. But yeah, all in all, Resident Evil 4 was still good, right? Resident Evil 4 was still good. The remake was also brilliant. I played it. I loved it. I loved all the new things that they did. The little bit of explorations, I love exploring, and yeah, so it was all good. Uh, so now Resident Evil 5, right? Resident Evil 5 was mainly shooting, right? It was shooting. Every section you go into, it's shooting, more shooting. Not a lot of emphasis was given into each of the characters, their backstories. Not much was looked into. Not much was talked about. Not a whole lot of things were done with the puzzles. Even the puzzles also not really mind blowing or anything like that. They were not made. They had a good thing in. happening, right? They had a good idea. The Ouroboros virus. I can't remember. I think it was something to do with it had some origin to do with the T virus, right? This is how they developed the T virus. It started in Africa or something like that. I remember there was some origin here, so that was good. The return of Jill Valentine was also good. Jill went missing. I think at Chronicles, yeah, Chronicles, yeah, she went missing, and then you know we finally get her back. So that was all good, right? And they had they knew what they were doing, but they were like, let's just focus on making this as action oriented as possible, and that's when they kind of like lost their way, right? Um, the design appears to not just be a misguided attempt to follow Western success, but also misreading its predecessor. So yeah, Resident Evil 4 was a pivotal point, right? When they changed the whole camera mechanic to the over-the-shoulder shooting mechanic, and combat encounters for focus on surviving overwhelming horrors rather than dominating foes. Mm, yeah. Resident Evil 5, meanwhile, presents its enemies as waves to be gunned down with increasingly powerful weaponry. Their purpose is cannon fodder. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's all true. Contains structure with discrete levels in motion, backtracking, heavy design of the previous games, but it preserves the spirit of locations like Raccoon City Police Station 5. Faithful remake. Okay, so what they're saying is a faithful remake would be bad. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, you can't. It's not. It shouldn't be just a direct. They need to rewrite all. They need to do exactly, pretty much what Final Fantasy Rebirth did, right? In this remake, they've added a lot of new things. They've changed a lot of things, but they still kept the spirit of the game still in there, right? They need to find that and get that done. Oh wait, what's this? Remakes can obviously be redefined by classic RPG. Even they also talk about Final Fantasy Rebirth here. A whole new environment. I think Final Fantasy Rebirth kind of like set the bar for remakes. Not Final Fantasy Rebirth, but the whole remake series, right? It just set the bar for remakes. A whole new environmental structure, scenario design that reins in the action and dials in the horror would bring it in line with Capcom's other remakes. Yeah, they just need to dial up the horror. That's it. What? But all does not account for Resident Evil's most notorious problem: racism. In this game, racism. Uh, Set in fictional West African country, Resident Evil 5's primary is for black people. Yes, technically, it's the Ouroboros virus, but the parasite's host is depicted as nations of mob and primitives who are violent even before the infection. Intentionally or not, Resident Evil 5 positions Africa as the dark continent and uncivilized world. Okay, fine. Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. And now I'm going to speak on this on behalf as a minority, right? I do not think that they intentionally. I think they intentionally wanted to make put this out like there, but yeah, I can see the concerns. But I do not want them, because of reasons like this. I do not want them to change the West African setting. Right? I love the West African setting. I thought it was a good idea, right, to bring this into a whole new area of the world. But I think they just need to improve upon it, right? Yeah, definitely remove the bits about, like, this has been like, yeah, like a violent area even before the infections and things like that. Just do what you did with the Resident Evil 4, which is the infection comes in and people go crazy. That's what it. We love, just keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. We like it, like we like it that way, right? We just love the West African setting. I like the savannas. I like the shanty towns. I like the horror elements they can bring, but it was not properly brought. But so yeah, this insensitive treatment of people of color was hotly debated. Here's the thing, right? If it's in Africa, I would expect primarily, like, the entirety of most of um, the enemy archetypes to be people of color, right? If it was in Asia, I expect them to be Asian looking. If it was in Southeast Asia, I expect them to look like Southeast Asia. If it was in Sri Lanka, I expect them to look like Sri Lankan, right? I would be gunning down fellow Sri Lankans, right? In that game, yeah, I would expect them to look like from where they are from, right? I wouldn't have it any other way. So, I mean, and the protagonist, I think so. People have issue with Chris being the protagonist, right? But here's the thing, right? Chris is the most iconic protagonist of the Resident Evil series. We do not complain about that, right? He was the very first playable character, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he was, right? Apart from Jill Valentine in the very first Resident Evil game. So there's nothing wrong with having Chris, but the thing is, people forget that there was another protagonist in Resident Evil 5, right? They seem to have forgotten about it, and that is Shiva. Shiva was Chris's partner. She was a woman of color, and she was his protagonist. She was his partner, right? So here's the thing. Here's the problem. Here's the problem Resident Evil 5 did have, which is they had two protagonists, Chris and Shiva, but Shiva was not pushed that well, I would say, right? She was made to be your partner, the side character who would be there for the co-op player, the 2P player to take control of, and not a lot of story around her was driven. A little bit was talked about her, but not too much was dealt into it. This is what they can improve upon, right? So if they were doing a remake, I think they need to like make Shiva kind of like I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. Is it Shiva or Shiva? Anyway, they need to make sure that she is a bit more prominent in this game because she is a protagonist, right? So she needs to come out a bit more and not like it just needs to be exactly like Leon and Claire, I would say, in Resident Evil 2. Leon and Claire in Resident Evil 2, Jill and Olivier in Resident Evil 3, uh, like that, right? They need to go like properly side by side. And what I would like them to do, let me just quickly skim through this. Um, so where does Capcom personally go from here? Blah, blah, blah. White man shooting waves of African. I mean, like it's it's Chris. He's already white, and it's in Africa. So I mean, uh, I don't want them to change the African setting for any reason. Like I just love the West African setting that the game did have. So where does Capcom go from here? Code Veronica, ideal candidate. Yeah, they could do that, but I think they should do. So I playing. Yeah, Resident Evil 6 was quite bad. Okay, here's the thing. Right. So it's up to them, right? They could do Code Veronica. They could do. I don't think they should do remake mechanics. Maybe Code Veronica because that was also a good game. Or Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil. I don't think they should do Resident Evil 1 because I think it already had a remake, right? Resident Evil 1, the old game, had a very old remake done. I think we should just read Resident Evil 1 at this point. I don't see. I mean, like, I think it's fine. Resident Evil 0, I don't think Resident Evil 0 was all that popular for some reason. Um, yeah, I'm not. I would mind saying 5, right? Um, so yeah, okay. Here's what I would like them to do. Uh, what they could do is so because the entirety of the game was to be able to play as co-op, right? So Chris and Shiva would be together for the entirety of the game, apart from certain sections where they split up, but they don't really split up. It's just that one person's on a balcony or something, or across the area, and you have to cover them, protect them, something like that. So what I would like them to do is like keep the whole co-op thing, like they have to be together, but in certain sections properly split up, right? They're on their own, doing their own thing, and you can use that opportunity to build up on their story a bit, tell a little bit about the character, find a little bit more information about themselves. So things like that. And maybe at the beginning, if we get to choose between Chris and Shiva, I'm not sure. It's up to them to figure it out, but I'm just throwing out suggestions at this point, right? Maybe choose between Chris or Shiva who they want to play as. If it is a full co-op experience, like you can play them throughout together, choose between. Or what they could also do is just like in Resident Evil 2, have the multiple storylines, right? So we in Resident Evil 2 we had a Leon A, Leon B, Claire A, Claire B. That was not bad. That was nice, right? So they could do the exact same thing if they're doing like this whole rewrite remake thing, right? They definitely need to rewrite a lot of things. They need to put more focus on the story, make it horror, add more like properly put some dialogue options rather than this cliche stuff, right? So just like in Resident Evil 2, just like we got Leon A, Leon B, Claire A, Claire B, those little storylines, like those little sections of the game, They could do Chris A, Chris B, and Shiva A, Shiva B, and that would be not bad. So yeah, this will definitely be like look. I mean, like, I don't look at this point. Like, yeah, I mean, like we can't just point at everything and say that this is racism, this is not, and all that, right? Things like that, right? Otherwise, we can never make a proper. We can never have a proper TV series or game if everything is perceived this way, right? We just need to get lay back a bit, right? Because yeah, so like in 2020s, yeah, of course the world went through a massive change, like with certain, deaths like that. So I can see why this becomes an issue, but I think we should take a step back as well and just reevaluate the way things are. Um, because like I did not feel like there was like much racism when I was playing the game. Like I this was an old game, right? This came way before we had any of these issues. So yeah. Is there anything else that they which? Yeah, that's about it. This is quite hilarious that IGN gave it 9.3. So there you guys have it. Like, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. This is by far just it's just an opinion, right? It's not I'm saying that this is what needs to happen or anything like that. It's just my opinion, how I feel. Let me know what you guys feel about it. Like, there's nothing wrong talking about it, right? So yeah, I'm not too eager. Like, I think they should take their time with this, right? I don't want them to rush into this, like, because as soon as we got Resident Evil 2, I don't think the gap between Resident Evil 2, the remake of 2 and 3 was that far apart. So 3 was okay, but it did feel a bit rushed. But I do want them to take their time with, if they're planning on doing another remake, be it Code Veronica or 5. I would prefer Code Veronica 5 over 1 or 0. Um, I would love them to take their time. Just take your time. Take your time. Right. When we had Resident Evil 4, we are happy with it. It'll be enough for a couple of years, right, for people to play some good Resident Evil. But yeah, just take your time. We don't need 5 so soon. So there you guys have it. Let me know, as I said before. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And yeah, I hope you guys have a good day. I'll see you guys in the next live stream or video then. Till next time then. Bye bye.